4 years ago, I was crying. I had just come off stage from my first TED Talk, and I got hold of my mother on the phone. I was so relieved, and I had been managing to come across with an idea that we're facing a revolution where we're going from fossil dependency into nature dependency, really understanding that we're on one planet. I had communicated this message to an audience, and I think to understand most of it, and I was so proud. A little bit later, I was thinking about, will I be able to live up to this now? Was this the biggest moment of my life? And it's been going 4 years, and I'm sad to say, being on the stage again, that our environmental footprint is increasing. We have increased our linear thinking more, actually. Inflating may be something that could be a bubble. Currently, we're throwing plastic in the ocean of the speed of 1 big truck per minute. By 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. So, should we be negative? Well, I do think that we need to recognize that technology is toxic. We have actually a footprint. It's not only good. But there is some good too. There are some reasons for optimism. Currently, we're on the verge of getting driverless cars. They're saying they're going to be more than 100 times safer than when we're driving them ourselves. That would equal, if we can get safe cars on the road, hopefully solar powered, that would equal several thousand lives per day. Just imagine a whole 9/11 terrorist attack, all those lives saved every day by a smarter technology that's very feasible in the next coming years. So yes, there are several reasons to be an optimist. Last week I got the opportunity to go and discover the Wonderland, the mythical little valley in the Bay Area of San Francisco called Silicon Valley, the unicorn factory. Yes, I almost had goosebumps coming off the flight. An app directed me straight to a car that took me to the hotel. Another app told me amazing things to do. And while consumed in the phone, I was walking out of the hotel, but I was disrupted. I'm gonna fuck you up! And looking up like a, surprised reindeer, trying to readjust. I'm gonna punch you in the face! This man walking straight towards me, and me trying to sort of, should I flee or should I, what? But me just facing him, turned him off. His eyes just went dead, and he walked past me like a zombie. Now a little bit less focused on the screen and a little bit more focused on the environment. I sort of started walking down Mission Street in San Francisco, and he wasn't the only kind of zombie people around. There were several on each corner of the street, all around. I was like, am I in the Hollywood movie set? Is this like a new TV series coming on to be streamed soon? No. I was so shocked, I SMS'd my friend, like, what's going on? Is there something happening downtown today? And he said, no, it's normal. This wasn't exactly the unicorns I was envisioning. So I Googled, and it turns out that in this small area of San Francisco, there are more than 4,000 homeless people. That area is approximately the same size as Södermalm, where my office is. It's quite small space. So a few hours later, I was down on the campus of one of these big tech companies. I had just finished a meeting, and I saw all these colorful, corporate-colored, happy bikes, and I was like, so you can just take this anywhere? Yeah, and just leave it. So I jumped on a very colorful bike to my next meeting, where I was offered 5 flavors of water. I choose melon. Very comfortable, nice life. My experience of most people were that they had one more click on the sun share more than us Swedish people. Very relaxed, laid-back attitude. So later at the dinner that night, I questioned a woman employed by this tech company if it didn't bother her that they drove by in this corporate chartered air-conditioned buses through this area with all the homeless people every day. And well, she said, well, no, the problem was there before this company. It's not really our issue to solve. But for me, it became a big kind of metaphor, right? All of a sudden, like, as soon as you have Wi-Fi, all those people not on the internet become invisible. They're all locked into the screen. And I don't think, me coming from the outside, maybe I was a bit more exposed to it than the people who were already into that system. So I think there's a little bit of a blind spot. I'm not sure. Later in the week, I had another dinner. This time with a group of young developers from a tech conference. And one of the guys tells me that he befriended 2 Swedish women, kind of proudly, and that they had invited him over to Sweden. And I was like, yeah, cool. When are you coming over? And he was like, what? No, Sweden is the rape capital of the world. It's not safe there, I wouldn't go. Shocked by this, I'm sort of a rape capital of the world? Really? That's not exactly my impression. But okay, but he was, so what's your fact supporting this view? He was, well, just Googled, man. Of course I did, and this is kind of what Google showed me. Rape capital of the world. It's noted that Muslim immigrants from North Africa, bold, were 23 times more likely to commit rape than Swedish men. It's no wonder why today Sweden is deemed the rape capital of the Western world. #1 Google result. Has blown, like, had very hard time accepting this worldview. And it takes a little bit before you get down to articles with actual facts in them. Of course, it's a very biased article. Its foundation for these articles are an institute that very makes a big effort to make this connection. Actually, there's nothing really supporting exactly the statement they're saying. It's very biased. Also, very curious for me. So it was hard to have this discussion at dinner because the facts were there in Google. How could I argue that? It made me the radical thinker, not the sound of reason. So yeah, okay, these statistics in Sweden, actually there's how we measure rape actually or sexual assault is different. So we can't really be compared to other countries because we have 2 different statistics system. That doesn't mean that, of course, every country in the world has this problem to some degree. But the point I'm trying to make here is not about that particular topic so much that we can have these very different worldviews, right? This guy's worldview was that he was afraid to go to other countries. He felt that there were a threat out there. And the internet helped him to confirm this worldview very efficiently. And I kind of feel like we're more and more in a kind of self-sealing bubble because there seems to be this information paradox that the more information we get, the more actively we step back and try to filter it somehow and choose what we believe a little bit more selectively. And there's algorithms actively helping us to show the right thing in our daily flow of information. So I'm married into a Syrian family. I know for a fact that there's 100,000 or more people coming into Sweden right now believing that it's a very relatively safe country to get away from rape and that kind of horrors. And for me, the challenge here is to find the models where we acknowledge that there exist these contradictory perspectives, that we have enough dialogue to understand that there's a perspective over there that I didn't understand or maybe believed, but might also be valid to have. I think that dialogue is very much missing in technology. So how does this kind of belief system work? Well, for me, the promise of the internet is this connected world, this rich world, right, with all these perspectives where everyone can meet. That's what made me excited all those years ago. And my first thing I did with the internet was starting to import beer when I was 16. Not totally legal, but that was an opportunity, right? And now, all these years later, I still don't really feel we're grasping that. So this is an interesting manifestation of how I see the internet, a meeting place. This is from a suburb called Fisksätra. They're planning a house of God. And on one side you have a church, and on the other side you have a mosque, and people have to meet in the middle and maybe sometime have a coffee with each other and talk about the value of God in your life, or talk about maybe losing faith and how that is. Because it's very easy to do that when you're faced with the sort of war crisis that we're seeing right now. It's not very easy always to believe. So this is like, why isn't internet looking like this? Why is it almost feeling like it's the opposite? I think we have to acknowledge that beliefs are a model of the world that we seem as perfect. We want to have a perfect model of the world. And because it's rooted kind of in our identity, even when the questions come, we can't force those questions away because we don't want to be challenged in our own worldview. And that becomes this self-sealing logic that I think I wanted to point to, especially today. And I feel part of that culture. I've been standing on stage so many times preaching about technology, being almost feeling like it's the solution to all problems. Well, today I honestly want to submit that I don't think we have that complete solution. And if you think about values, generation perspectives is pretty great because it become quite clear. For me, for example, my grandfather's generation, they were after the war in Europe. They had very little resources. So they didn't assume that we had resources. They were kind of morally disciplined into building a very structured, building up the society. Then my parents came and they all became to challenge the structures. They listened to Beatles and they protested the Vietnam War and maybe learned Reiki healing. So then comes my generation, and I do feel we're in a value vacuum, kind of an atheist vacuum, where we're lacking some of these values that we could pinpoint the movements in our previous generations. And I think that's exactly why we're subscribing to technology so heavy. We want a savior, we want it to be a value system, but it's not fully living up to that. So my idea today is that we need to challenge how these beliefs are connected to our identity. And I think the way to see that is that the only way we can change our own identity is to challenge it, you know, and that's more than just belief. That's the hardest thing you can do, change your own self-image. What are we doing in tech? So when I go off stage today, I won't be crying because I am proud. I will be crying because I feel I have done too little. Thank you.